Yo, we're live with Sheikh
Yo,
Dilemma and Matt.
what's
Matt.
happening? What's good? What's
Well,
up?
welcome, guys. I'm glad to have Avery back. You've been like busy as hell lately, man. Where have you been traveling around the country, like debating with Muslims or something?
I'm doing that. Yeah, I'll be out there. I'll be out there in London, in a few days. Um, we got a New York trip planned in August.
Oh yeah, when is that
Yeah,
happening? When are we doing that?
August. So the dates is the weekend of the 15th to the 18th. Those are the dates that we set out for August. So if your calendar is free, man, come on through. If it's not free, clear it up and it still comes through.
I will see what I can do. I will
All
see.
right.
All right, awesome. So I also have Matt with me. For those who don't know, Matt works behind the scenes. He also runs the very popular Instagram account Memes for Jesus. But he does a lot of like background stuff for me posting. And most of the time when stuff is being posted, it's him who's doing it. So if I say anything stupid, it's his fault.
And that's going to go along with what we're going to see in this debate.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to see a lot of that tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. For those who don't know, recently James White debated an actual legitimate white supremacist. And he said some of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Things that can be debunked if you just spend 5 minutes reading up on sociology or history. And I figured I would get two very intelligent people I know to come on and take a look at this. No other reason, but other than the fact that he's attacking you, basically, you guys, generally speaking, because he thinks he's superior than you. It's a lot of absurdity going on here.
Right. Yeah. Your motives are clear. Good lineup here you got, for sure.
Yeah. So the debate was, can black Christians be sanctified? And it's like, that should have been like James White's opening statement should have been yes. And then that should have been it. Like, obviously.
That's it. Yeah.
What were your thoughts, Avery? I was just like bored by the debate because the white supremacist Cory, his opening statement was just utter stupidity that wasn't even addressing James White's points or making a case.
Yeah.
Were you was it a riveting debate from your perspective?
I hated it. But what I will say is that the white supremacist brother, he definitely gave me some good laughs. I was definitely chuckling because it was his style of how he's trying to present his argument, so astute and so profound, and defining words like can and in the English language, like what does can mean? And I just like this guy. He can't be serious, but he was dead serious.
Yeah.
So it was very boring. But
is he like a lawyer or something? Is he like a lawyer or something? Because he kept saying let the court see, let the court be known, or something like that. I was like, does this guy think he's on a courtroom right now? Like,
he was. Listen, I don't think he's got. I have no idea what his career is, but man, he did not come across as intelligent. And well, I have some papers. So he makes this claim that black people are inherently have average than lower IQs than white people. That's a problem for him because I have actual papers that are going to show someone like him actually is low IQ. We're going to get to those. I got some really good papers, but the whole debate was just incredibly boring. James White was actually debating the topic. Mahler had no clue what he was doing. Yeah. He was just, his whole argument was there are natural limitations God has set. Black people have natural limitations that white people don't have. Therefore, they can't be sanctified, which is stupid. He's equivocating on intelligence and sanctification. The concept of sanctification is not dependent on intellectual capacity. Mm-hmm. You could argue that someone who is mentally handicapped, like legitimately mentally handicapped, can be sanctified, even though they may not have the same intelligence as someone who is, like a rocket scientist, for example. Yep. This is a ridiculous argument for him to make. That was one of his main points. It didn't even make sense because he kept equivocating on that.
Well, here's something that was interesting. He brought the analogy of, God being able to create a rock so heavy that he can't lift. Like it's a contradiction. It's something that is it's not a thing. And so therefore God cannot do this because it's not a thing to do. It contradicts his nature. And he was making that connection that sanctifying a black person more or as much as a white person is something equivalent to that. Like God cannot do that. It is not a thing to be done. And so that was like, wow, he's serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Serious.
It's almost
What
like
were your
too,
thoughts
like
on
he
that?
was a lot of the argument is based off of his perception of a person's sanctification level. But like that in itself is a ridiculous argument. It's like, how do you know someone's sanctification level compared to the other person? In my opinion, that's something only that's something that can only be known in God's mind.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you know, there's I don't know. I feel like there's so many strange positions that he took that are really hard to justify. And he just did that with so many different topics.
Yeah.
It was really stupid, and we'll see. Well, James White basically won the whole debate when they brought up Titus 1, which we'll get to. But we're not going to play much of James White's opening statement or Cory's, because Cory's opening statement is incredibly boring, and you'll just leave if we did that. We're going to get to some more of the juicier stuff because, good Lord, that was so boring. And
Yeah,
like, if you're going to at least debate the topic, Cory couldn't do that. And yeah, a lot of fallacies, a lot of just bad reasoning, a lot of just unfamiliarity with the sociological research on this topic. And yeah, so that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, StreamYard just started a whole new thing here where they'll let you put comments up on screen. Look at that. People can see the comments.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
So now we can start terrorizing people, or you can terrorize us with your comments. Cole Crocodile says, you and Than should have Wayne Fillmore on to talk about Torah authorship. He's a pro-documentary hypothesis, private Hebrew Bible scholar. We'll look into that, but right now, probably not. That's not a hot topic right now. And I've done 11 videos on that already. IP actually started on time, so I'm here, unlike AP. That's right. We start on time here, unlike Apostate Prophet, who starts whenever he wants. And so you got to sit there waiting, bored to tears. You come here, we're ready to go. I don't know what the problem is. Wow, your tan is looking really good, Than. Keep it up.
Yeah, I'm Than.
Sure. As a black man, it's a shame that the white man used the Bible, a book based in the Levant in North Africa, to enslave us, when Christianity aided in abolishing slavery. Better than Islam. It's not.
What?
So it's a shame that the white man used the Bible, a book based. Yeah. So I guess what he's saying, it's a shame that white people use the Bible as a tool to enslave people when it's a book based in Levant, North Africa, and then Christianity actually aided in abolishing slavery, which is entirely true. It didn't make sense to use the Bible to justify slavery, given that there's strong principles in there that show that slavery should be completely abolished. We see that in Ephesians 6, Galatians 3, the letter of Philemon, these kinds of things. And it's that kind of stuff. I think is what he's getting at there. Yeah. And he added, I meant is better than Islam is what he's saying. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's for sure. It is there's a funny story though. Like I remember reading this in one of the histories I was reading, is that Christian abolitionists went to an island off Morocco to try to advocate for the ending of slavery. And the Muslim governor of the island said, well, we can't abolish slavery. That goes against our religion. What are you guys doing?
Wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Legitimate story.
Wow.
You know, I don't believe you half the time, man.
All right, I'll show you. Let me pull up a video file here. I'll just
wow.
This is a video this is a great segue because this is a video I'm working on here. Video is titled How Christianity Ended Slavery. So here's an earlier rough cut, and I'll just jump ahead to the quote. So here we go. Here it is.
Oh my gosh, I love IP's videos. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so the governor replied that Richardson's mission was against our religion. I cannot entertain it, think of it, or interfere with any of it whatsoever. The purchase and sale of slaves was authorized by the prophet himself. So this is coming up in a future video, come out in June. Wow. How Christianity ended slavery, and yeah, we're gonna be going over a lot of this kind of stuff, showing that Islam was kind of the biggest opponent to the abolitionists. Like they were
Wow.
countries like Mozambique were like the last to end slavery. It was Christians fighting for good 150 years in Africa to end slavery. They showered in after they got rid of it in Europe to try to end it there. It was insane. Yeah.
Amazing. You just gave Avery so much more ammo.
Sure did.
Oh, there's a lot more in here. Let me tell you, there's a lot more in here. Like,
I can't wait.
This is during the Zanj Rebellion. And the leader said that he did when he was leading the Zanj, he said, like, we're not going to end slavery. I'm going to get you guys your own slaves instead, because, the ending of slavery in Islam was just unthinkable. So it was just going to be a reverse kind of thing happening. But there's a lot more coming in this video, Avery. I guarantee there'll be a lot you'll be able to use for this coming out.
Hey, Mike, quick question though. What if I want to see that video early? How do I do that?
Oh, well, that's a great question, Matt. You just go to the link below, inspiringphilosophy.org or .com, inspiringphilosophy.com/give, and you become a monthly donor, and then you'll get that video early. Or you go to patreon.com/inspiringphilosophy, and you'll get access to that early.
Wow.
And then I can pay Matt.
You heard him, folks.
You heard him. All right, let's get into some of this video here, because otherwise I'm going to just keep going on super chats, and we'll get to more in a little bit here. But I'm just going to play a little bit of this. This is a good summary of what James White argues, and I think it covers it pretty well.
And what we're basically doing is I'm defending the assertion that many of you have heard before, I'm sure, and that is the ground is level at the foot of the cross. And so we don't have certain kinds of Christians that are better than other kinds of Christians simply because of their ethnicity, their background, their social status, whatever it might be. Instead, we recognize the fact that there is only one standing before God, and that is the imputed righteousness of Jesus Christ. And there is one thing that unites us, and that is the presence of the Holy Spirit in each and every one of us. That's what brings the body together. That is a beauty that I've experienced when traveling the world, including in places like South Africa and Zambia. And maybe that'll come up later in the conversation. But I want to go.
So I think that's a good summary. But I mean, like, one quick note is that people were attacking James White for even doing this debate. And he had a really good reply. He said, like, if someone would have done this when Mormonism got going, we may never be in this situation right now where we are. And if you guys haven't noticed, Twitter has gotten kind of crazy lately with a lot of white supremacists coming out of the woodworks, getting kind of a little bit popularity on there. Like, I'll see a white supremacist post occasionally, and the amount of likes it has on it does terrify me a little bit. So this is not just giving light to somebody who doesn't already have popularity. It's already happening, and now it needs to be addressed. So, and
that makes sense.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, because we were talking before this, and I was actually surprised that James White took this debate. I was like, isn't this topic just like a joke? Like, who would take this? Like, who would take this seriously? And you saying that no, actually on X, it's actually prominent. Like, there's a lot of this stuff coming out, and so if it's like that, then yes, it needs to be addressed, debunked at its genesis. You know what I'm saying? And shown to be stupid, humiliated, and you see, demolished intellectually, demoralized. You know, so
yeah, dude, yeah. And I think I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Matt, but I think James basically summarized his entire opening statement and argument that entire time. In Christianity, it's a level playing field. There's neither Jew nor Greek, free nor slave, male nor female. We are all one in Christ. The idea that you can say there are certain Christians that are more sanctified than other based on race is not only insanely stupid, it's not only insanely moronic, it's antithetical to Christianity itself. And there's a good reason that Cory Mahler was excommunicated from the LCMS. That's the Lutheran Church of the Missouri Synod, which is a very popular Lutheran denomination in the U.S. He was excommunicated for good reason. He's not acting as a Christian, and he should be excommunicated. And I think the LCMS is right in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a ton of activity on X, even on like Instagram, where you'll see people just saying these things in reference to Black people or minorities that you haven't seen on the internet for a while, or you would see it and was kind of like more covered up and under the radar, but it's pretty much out in open display. Like, being a social media guy and being on social media like almost every millisecond of the day, I just see it all the time. Some of it, like, I'm going to be honest, some of the memes, I'd be laughing. Some of the memes are hilarious.
That's-
I will laugh at them because if
That's
a good joke
racist.
is a good joke.
I'm sorry you had to hear that, Avery.
But then there's some people that legitimately mean it. Like, and
Mm.
like what I mean by a good joke is that there's people who will make jokes about it, but in reality, they're they love black people and they're not really racist. The joke is racism. But
Mhm.
the people that truly believe that are the ones, like I saw a video on X the other day where it was a white gentleman approaching interracial couple, and he was like talking to the Caucasian girl and said, "Why are you destroying your heritage with this expletive?" And I'm like, this guy really has the nerve to record himself doing this and doing this in public. Are you serious? And so yeah, we'll get more into it, I'm sure, but yeah, it's very prominent and it's disgusting.
Well, here's Cory Mahler. If you've not seen him, he's in incredibly weird hair distribution. I mean, like, honestly, if you're going bald, man, just go bald and don't have that long beard. I mean, like, it's just not a good look. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that like it's an argument against him. I'm just saying, tongue in cheek, weird distribution here. But this is
change. Put a couple tattoos on him. Change the fit a little bit. He'll be all right. He'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. So I skipped his opening statement because James White rebuttal because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
This is where he actually starts to make an actual argument for his incredibly racist and stupid argument. And we'll debunk a lot of this because James did not have time. As you know, I brought the studies. And if you're a Cory Mahler fan, I don't expect you to get them. I expect you to be home coloring somewhere. But we'll go through the studies for people that are actually interested in this kind of stuff.
I was prepared for this. It was inevitable. We are not discussing justification. My opponent keeps returning to justification. We're dealing with sanctification. We're not dealing with salvation. No one is contending that blacks cannot be saved. No one is contending the Chinese cannot be saved, or South Africans, or Ugandans, or whomever else. It is interesting to me that my opponent takes the majority, or at least a good chunk, of his rebuttal time to denigrate his own people and praise the foreigner. Scripture certainly has some things to say about that. And
what is he talking about there? Denigrating his own people and praising the foreigner. If you read through the Torah, God has a lot of love for the foreigner. The foreigner should be treated as equals in Israel.
Yeah, whatever Bible he's reading definitely says the opposite for some reason. I don't know.
How dare James White be a traitor to his own kind, and try to defend the foreigner in this case? How dare he, guys?
Well, one of James White's points is if you look at wokeism, transgenderism, these ideas are not very prominent in the black communities. These are prominent by white elitists, places like Scotland, Britain, places that are like Vermont, which is mostly white. Okay, a lot of those can be pretty dumb ideas, we would argue. Cory Mahler would believe those are dumb ideas, but those aren't coming out of Hispanic, Chinese, black communities. They're predominantly being spread around in elitist white communities.
Let's just call it for what this is, Mike. This is the beginning of white Hebrew Israelism, man. He's a white Hebrew Israelite, dog. Is what this is. Okay?
We're gonna see him in a very shiny tunic soon.
Yeah, pretty soon. We'll see
some funky hat on and
amazing.
And who do that sort of thing. But the question, a core question, I guess I may as well answer because it keeps coming up, even though it's not the matter we are debating, it's not the resolution. What is the gospel? And the gospel, of course, is justificatio sola gratia sola fide sola Christo. That's my allowance for foreign language, but I'll, of course, translate it and explain it. Justification by grace alone, through faith alone, for the sake of Christ and his completed work alone. And we take that, of course, according to Scripture alone, sola scriptura, which is the sole source of our norms and our positive teaching with regard to the faith. We all agree on this, but that's not what we're discussing. That'd be a pointless debate. If we wanted to discuss the gospel, it would need to be something like debating the fact that my opponent denies the gospel to infants, and I, in accordance with the plain words of Scripture, do not do so. Instead, we are discussing the what then of the Christian life. We are discussing sanctification, not justification. And he said, maybe we'll get into some practical consequences. Well, we'll get into them right now. Let's talk about crime statistics. Blacks make up 13% of the US population. They commit 50 to 60% of all violent crime. It's actually...
What are you laughing at?
Getting into crime statistics is a meter for how much a race can be sanctified.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, that makes total sense.
Man,
Just,
that is hilarious.
it's
Oh,
Just the way he
that's
says
good.
stuff too. He's just like, I will demonstrate it now. Let's get
Yeah.
into crime statistics. Like, okay, R2D2.
I'm thinking he
Where-
about to give us some Bible scriptures, some verses or something. Nah, let's look at the crime rates. Look, when you go over here to the hood, look, this is what's happening, man. You think these folks can be sanctified in the hood? Stop it.
it's a stupid argument because you could spin data easily to show that white people can't be fully sanctified. Where were the 2 world wars fought? Where were the Napoleonic Wars fought?
Yeah.
Okay, where was some people call the French Indian War the real first global war because the British had colonies everywhere and they were fighting the French colonies everywhere. These were primarily like you could do the similar kind of thing and say more wars have happened in Europe, more death from wars. Look at how violent white people are, guys.
Yeah.
Ignore other statistics and ignore other variables. It's stupid. It's not a good argument. You got to do more. And you guys are absolutely correct. None of this means people can't be sanctified. Like White brought this up in the debate. You go back to Europe 2,000 years ago, you had a bunch of Germanic tribes running around committing human sacrifice, all sorts of horrible things. And look at what Europe became eventually. I mean, this is absurdly stupid. None of this means they can't be sanctified, even if he's right about crime
I
statistics.
would love to see him go against Captain Tazariak or Gorilla Hebrew.
Dr. Umar.
Umar, Deacon. I need to see this debate. I need to see this, man.
But
We're
yeah,
gonna
Mike,
ask-
like, sorry,
Go ahead.
you did make the point that James White made multiple times during the debate. It's like, okay, well, you can present all these statistics. Would you have applied this same argument towards your own people in a different time period? Like his whole argument falls apart and he never addressed it at any point.
No, he can't address it.
Actually, worse than that, though, because the overwhelming majority of that violent crime is committed by black males between the ages about 15 and 45. And they make up about 5% of the population. We're talking about the US, of course. 5% of the population committing 60% of the violent crime. That doesn't look like sanctification to me. Well, here's the problem for my opponent. 75 to 80% of blacks in the US claim to be Christian. That's an incredible overlap with those committing these violent crimes.
That's right, folks. They claim to be Christian, therefore they must be.
Therefore, they are Christian.
Yeah. And I love that he's using only American statistics. Like, oh, look at the the African American Christians, quote unquote. That must mean all black people in the entire world can't be sanctified to the same measure of white people. Yeah. Really astute reasoning. Love that.
Yeah. Well, let me I think this is the one. Okay. Well, he's doing the same thing atheists did like 15 years ago
Amazing.
when people like Matt Dillhunty, Aaron Rawl would cite papers from people like Gregory Paul or Phil Zuckerman. They would go, look at the white areas of the US, like Vermont and New York, and then look at the mixed race areas. But they wouldn't say that. They'd go, look at the less religious areas. They have less crime. These are the actual things I'd see Phil Zuckerman, Gregory Paul do. And then they would say, well, look at this interesting correlation, guys. What does this tell you? Wink, wink. Cory's doing, and I actually warned the atheists 15 years ago. Racists will do the same thing because you can also find the variable of race looking at when you do these macro level surveys. But it's crap when you actually start looking at the variables, because when you actually get into the data and you actually look at more variables, it starts to change. So this paper was published assessing the race, crime, and ethnicity, crime relationship, and sample of serious adolescent delinquents. What did they find? Well, we can go right down here to the conclusions. Okay, they looked at over 1,000 individuals. Overall, then, there appears no difference in median self-reported offense frequency between racial and ethnic groups.
Wow.
Go down further. These models, so they actually ran models. They didn't just do surface level crime data. All point to the same conclusion. There is no significant difference in prior year arrests between racial and ethnic groups. The point of what they're making in the study is that factors like socioeconomic status, family structure, prior delinquency were much stronger predictors. And when you factored in those variables, guess what? Race has no correlation to crime whatsoever.
Hmm.
So you just can't look at the raw data of crime statistics and make these leaping conclusions. That's what atheists were doing. Cory Mahler would reject that. Atheists would do the same thing, and they're showing that, like, you can go to religious areas, they have more crime than the less religious areas. But numerous studies show religiosity reduces crime and delinquency. Okay. Likewise, you're looking at macro level data, you don't get a good understanding of the data. You have to run actual statistical models, and you'll find when you do that, race and crime are not correlative.
I disagree. Do you see the crime rates in the Black communities? I disagree. The statistics say it all.
I'm not sure we have the IQ to comprehend your argument here, Michael. I mean, can you explain it for someone?
I'm sure. I'm sure we're going to get to that because I got some studies on IQ that are going to be kind of shoot him in the foot here. Yeah.
There are between 5,000 and 15,000 black on white rapes per year in the US. There are 0 white on black rapes.
Did he just say this after there was an historic slave trade and many women were raped by graped by certain men who own these women? Like,
he just forgot about all of that.
He just forgot about all that. Like,
0.
Yeah, forget about
0.
that.
The other thing to keep never happened. No, the other thing to keep in mind is rape is so underreported because women are shamed and they don't want to actually do it. So, like, a lot of this goes unreported. If communities, like a lot of Black communities, actually distrust the police, they distrust authorities, they don't report a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. Like, to ignore those kind of factors and when you're looking at this stuff shows you've not done a lot of deep diving into the data. You're just looking for things to confirm your conclusion.
Does he ever talk about his view on, like the transatlantic slave trade and, what whites did to Africans and to the families and stuff? Does he ever talk about that? Does it ever get brought up?
Not in this debate. No. Nope. No, he's too busy doing other stuff.
I see.
Does that seem like a difference, racially speaking, with regard to sanctification? It certainly does to me. I don't even think it's difficult to argue that. I think it's extremely straightforward. Subsequent to mass immigration into Europe, violent crime, again, particularly rape, has skyrocketed, with non-white men representing the overwhelming majority of the offenders. I could go on for quite some time, as all of you in the audience are well aware, but the point is clear. These are not the behaviors of Christian men. And yet, let us look at some other numbers. Again, 75 to 80.
So, again, just a really bad argument because notice the shifting, notice the equivocating on, well, if they do bad things, therefore they can't be sanctified. That's
right.
Again, absurdly stupid. It doesn't even logically follow.
80% of blacks in the US claim to be Christian. This holds across the world.
Claim to be Christian.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as actually being Christian. A lot of people claim things and they aren't.
With regard to the crime numbers, with regards particularly to violent crime. So let's look at Africa. The violent crime and rape rates are consistent with the rates among the aforementioned diaspora populations in other parts of the world. It's racial. It's not cultural. It's not any of these things, because of course culture is downstream from race. Culture doesn't fall out of the sky and then people pick it up off the ground. It's created. It is an artifact of human beings. It is a product of a nation. Although in fact,
so what he's ignoring is, again, he's ignoring other variables like poverty. Okay, Africa has a lot of poverty, not because of race, but because of geography. Okay, if you look at the African coast, there is no place you can have deep sea ports. Deep sea ports are essential for bringing in goods and services. Okay, the North American coast has some of the best deep sea ports anywhere in the world, like Chesapeake Bay, San Francisco Bay. Okay, they don't have a lot of navigable rivers through sub-Saharan Africa. That's essential for getting goods. Like if you go to like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it's incredibly hard to get goods across that country because of how hard it is to navigate the natural geography. You have to go down rivers, get on trains, then get off the trains, go on other rivers. It's incredibly difficult. So he's ignoring socioeconomical and geographical factors that cause more poverty on the continent that are lacking in places like Europe, North America.
I'm still trying to see the link of sanctification. Like I know that the whole debate is about sanctification, and he's talking about, James is going off subject, talking about justification. I'm waiting to hear something about sanctification with it. Like I'm waiting to hear a verse. I'm waiting to hear maybe some early church history, something. I'm waiting to hear how this connects with sanctification. People doing bad things, therefore they can't be sanctified. What is this, dude?
Yeah, it's a fallacious argument. He has no idea what he's talking about. Just because people do bad things, you could say the Germans, for example, did a lot of bad things in the 1940s. Does that mean they can't be sanctified?
Yeah.
These numbers are
It's
worse in
insane.
some places. My opponent mentioned South Africa, where the rape rate is in excess of 130 per 100,000, more than double the US rate. The issue is racial. It's the reason we're bringing Afrikaners over here as refugees, because of what the blacks have done in South Africa. So let's look at intelligence, because my opponent brought up the issue of IQ. Let's go ahead and look at it.
Yeah.
The average black IQ in the US is just shy of 85. The average black IQ in Africa is somewhere right around 70. It depends on which particular studies you use. Historically, according to the DSM, the standard manual for psychology, one standard deviation below the mean, 100 for whites, was considered mentally retarded. That's a technical term. I'm not using the derogatory term. That is a technical psychological term that we used to use.
So he said based on studies.
Yep.
I know this
Yeah.
is bad,
It
but
depends which study you use too. You got to use the studies.
these studies, Matt, make sure you get that correct. It's these studies. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, everything I found was that 85 and above is normal. I'm not sure what he is getting at here. And you only have borderline at that point. So again, he's he doesn't cite anything. So I have no idea what he's referring to here, but that doesn't seem to be accurate.
He clearly cited the studies. Are you not listening? Are you one of us? You one of us, Mike? Let us know if you're one of us, man. Because
Yeah, let's see the DNA test. Let's see the
DNA test. I already suspected that Mike was black, but
yeah.
I already suspected this a while ago when I met him. But yeah, come on, man, get it together.
I used to be a rapper, and then the wear and tear of parenthood drained my. I was just shocked by everything.
Oh yeah.
The other problem is that IQ tests are historically been highly controversial. There are some who swear by them, and there are some like Robert Sternberger or Stephen Jay Gould or this paper, for example, that argues that IQ tests are not really good for measuring intelligence because they only measure types of intelligence. Like they like pattern recognition or verbal ability, not general intelligence, and they tend to correlate with school testing. But that's also not a good measure of intelligence. Like you could be somebody who's incredibly bad at school, incredibly bad at testing, and yet be incredibly intelligent in terms of like sales or negotiating or navigating through different cultures. Like IQ tests may not even be the best thing for measuring intelligence, but that's never really even brought up. They just is assumed that somehow this is going to be a good way to measure intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you say in one of your videos a while back too, Mike, that emotional intelligence can actually have more weight or value as far as the way that it's applied to society and overall skill than like the intelligence quota tests? Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. Do you remember anything like that?
No, Daniel Goleman wrote a book on emotional intelligence, why it can matter more than IQ. So it's like kind of like the difference between book smart and street smart.
Yeah.
Like emotional intelligence is going to help you navigate people far better than IQ will. But Daniel Goleman argues that emotional intelligence is not going to be measured by IQ. And you could make the case that like this reason I brought it up is because atheists were using this exact same kind of reasoning to argue against religious people. You have lower IQs. We have higher IQs. What does that tell you? And I was like, yeah, but emotional intelligence is not measured by IQ. It's actually found very much among religious people, not as much among atheists. So yeah, ridiculous.
Whoops.
Say.
I think he says one more thing, and then I'm going to pull up the other studies I've been saving for him.
It's been superseded now by other things usually, but one standard deviation, that's 85. That means that the overwhelming majority of all blacks in the world are mentally retarded by an objective standard. Why does this matter? Why does it matter to the Christian faith? Well, obviously it matters for certain things like society and maintaining systems and criminality. But why does it matter specifically for the Christian faith? There's a reason I went through some of the things I did in my opening, because it matters that we pay attention to the actual resolution. It matters that we pay attention to the wording, and it matters that we pay attention to the consequences. What is the Christian faith? The Christian faith is a hypothetical.
All right. Well, he's just
What?
going off on a. He's just going off on rambling.
A hypothetical, Mike Jones. That's tough.
I have no idea what he means.
If you do X, then Y, or if X, then Y. It's a statement about something contingent in the future. Well, what is the Christian faith? If you believe in Christ, X, then you will be saved. Y. The Christian faith is a hypothetical. How do you explain a hypothetical to someone who can't understand them?
What?
What?
Mm.
What is this?
See, now it's coming together. It's coming together. See, you blacks, all right, you're not that intelligent enough to even grasp sanctification in the first place. You're not capable of grasping the Christian faith. So therefore, since it can't be explained to you, since you can't understand it, how then can you even believe or be sanctified?
Yeah.
See?
You see?
Wow. That's good.
So let's pull these up. So he wants to talk about IQ. Okay, we can talk about IQ.
Do it.
This is a lower cognitive ability predicts greater prejudice through right-wing ideology and low intergroup contact. We found that low general intelligence in childhood predicts greater racism in adulthood. Our results suggest that cognitive abilities play a critical, albeit underappreciated role in prejudice.
Wow.
So,
In layman's terms, being racist means you're dumber.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of the ironies in the catch-22 someone like Cory Mahler is in. He wants to claim low intelligence means black people can't be sanctified. He has low intelligence according to these studies, so him and his fellow racist acolytes probably can't be sanctified based on their low IQ.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
we got him.
Forgot to pull that up.
I'll give you the chance. Here we go. Oh, I thought you were gonna do the meme.
No, I'm not done yet. I wasn't done with studies. I got more.
Sorry.
Oh, you got these studies.
Yes. Are smart people less racist? Verbal ability, anti-black prejudice. So specifically, they're looking at anti-black prejudice. Results suggest that high-ability whites are less likely than low-ability whites to report prejudicial attitudes and more likely to support racial equality in principle.
Incredible.
So again, Cory wants to argue that, well, if you have low IQ, you can't be sanctified as much as people that have higher IQ. Him and his acolytes are low IQ according to the research on average. Remember, he wants to say on average, we can throw it back in his face. He just can't take an IQ test and pretend he's high IQ. He's talking about averages. Well, him and his racist acolytes are on average lower IQ than people who support racial egalitarianism. So he cooked himself. By his own logic, he has to accept he cannot be as sanctified as someone who is not racist.
Yeah.
It's funny too because like even if he wants to claim he's not racist, which he is, anybody who is not racist would even care about the topic. Like, if you're not racist, why even make the argument? Why spend the time even delving into the argument? If you are racist, you care about this type of thing, and you have a low IQ.
And you have a low IQ. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, it is. It's
Dude,
something.
I'm sorry, Mike, because that's the one thing you'll see in the comments of like the debate. You'll see people that are defending Cory saying, well, he's just spitting facts. That's all it is. He's just saying, factual statements. But then when you get to the actual data, like what you're showing here, people who care about this are demonstrating that they are in fact racist. And if they are in fact racist, they are low IQ.
So, you know what that, guys, that means?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
we got him.
Got him.
So loud. It's so loud. I keep meaning to fix that.
That's what makes it funny, though.
All right. So we got a super chat here from Batman. He says, white men can't jump, but we are all one in Christ Jesus.
That's funny.
Listen, I will have you know, we have things that show us that we are pretty cool culturally. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by
what
that?
I
Mike?
mean? Oh, well, why don't I show you what we can do? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and some of you say white people don't have any culture. Then what is this? I don't think you understand the heritage and athleticism it takes to be a professional, whimsical skedaddler. Is what I'm saying? Watch it.
Oh man, I'm so glad you used that.
That was Matt's idea, just so you know. So maybe we can't jump, but we can be whimsical skedaddlers, just so you know.
Yeah.
Now what?
Athletic skedaddlers.
Amazing.
Nice.
Who's James White noob here? And some background will be great. Oh my God, I'm done.
Yeah. That's a pretty.
Who's James White? I don't know. He's been around for like 20 years in the apologetic circles.
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years. Just
I was about
crazy.
to say probably closer to 30.
Yeah, he got big going after King James only as the start. He's been in like the 90s. Like he's a pretty big Christian apologist of the Calvinist variety. So Matt would like him.
Yeah, I mean, oh great, here we go.
I'm
not really a Calvinist, guys.
Oh, okay.
There's accusations, there's rumors, but yeah, James White is huge in the Reformed circles, and he's known for his debates, and he's been very much leaning towards defending Calvinism in those debates as well.
Sorry, IP, but my favorite apologist is Avery. Well, he's my favorite too.
Oh,
So sexy.
Well, fellas, slow it down.
Seriously, my favorite apologist in one stream, pinch me. No, I'm
wow,
harassment.
Thanks, guys. I didn't know I had any fans. Appreciate it.
Well, you have to. Like, you do a lot of like the stuff behind the scenes for me. So you're like my secret society. You do all that.
Yeah. Well, your IP, Than is IPP, and I'm IPPP. Right? Is that how that works?
That is gross.
That's how it works.
He said that's gross.
That's how it works, man.
Logic in the house says holy hex. Man's not beating the skin's head allegate.
Wow.
Not beating the skin allegation.
Yeah.
Dylan said it. Corey's the opposite of black Hebrew Israelites.
There you go.
It won't be long before they start doing it, and they just start giving themselves weird traditional Scandinavian names to like counteract it. Like I'm Skarskingra now all of a sudden.
No.
Yeah, man.
The heritage.
Your guys' opinion, is it okay to watch a show or movie that has a fictional character whose IDs are homosexual? If we're not supposed to support LGBT, can we watch shows with homosexuals in it?
What?
In my opinion, just have discernment. Like, you know, just have some discernment. You know, that's what I would say when it goes to that.
Listen, if they're full on just going at it, no, don't watch that stuff. Like, don't watch. If you have interesting characters telling interesting stories, you're learning about a story. You're not like engaging in it. Like, I mean, like we can read like the Iliad and Odyssey, and like, you know, Odysseus is not the best guy. I mean, you know, Achilles is not the best guy. I mean, Agamemnon. The Iliad opens with Agamemnon and Achilles fighting over a girl they basically have kidnapped and they're using as, you know. So these aren't. We can still read and learn from them. So don't be such a stickler for that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, stay away from the full on stuff. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Alexander Campbell debated Mormons a lot when they were getting started and wrote against Smith. Yeah, but it wasn't like it's a lot more complicated history. But I get what you mean there. When you guys When will you guys?
Oh, this guy. Leave us alone. Nobody wants to debate you. I'll say it for Mike. Go away, okay? You will get smashed. If the debate even happens, you're gonna get embarrassed. Stop it. Get some help.
I just don't care. Like, I'm trying to like go against Muslims and atheists more. Like, I don't care about this stuff. There's so much more important stuff to do than this. Sentinel Apologetics says Mahler wants a move.
It's good.
Does this white supremacist use Genesis 9:25? I believe he does. If I remember what that is, that's about Noah. Oh, yeah. It's when this is a really dumb passage for racists to use for a number of reasons. But if I just put it on the screen here. So Noah wakes and he says, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." Okay, that's Canaan.
Yeah.
That's not Ham or Africa. That's Canaan. And Canaan wasn't black. Should be obvious. And also, people forget something about this. This is Noah's curse, not God. God is not endorsing any of this behavior here. Noah getting drunk, Ham embarrassing his father, Noah waking up and cursing. This is all sin happening here. None of this is endorsed by God. So if they use that, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm convinced Cory has never seen a black person. So here's an interesting comment. So he's Gnostic, excommunicated. The idea that knowledge or intelligence is necessary for sanctification, I guess. Would be similar because they would have said you need secret knowledge to be saved. But I guess Cory thinks you need secret knowledge or special knowledge to be sanctified, which is very similar to the Gnostic idea, for sure. Cory is literally the kind of guy that racist jokes are making fun of. It's playing the fool, and he is the fool. He is the punchline.
Yeah. Yep.
He's using his own room temp IQ to call others dumb.
Nice.
That's one way to put it. That room temp IQ is a very good line.
I love that.
This guy's arguing black people can't understand sanctification when Christianity was in Africa before Europe. Pray for me, brothers. Yes, it's.
Doesn't he make a comment on that, or at least on Augustine or something?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna play that. Yeah,
yeah, we gotta see that.
Yeah, the funny thing is that like while like the Romans are having a difficult time fighting off the Muslim invasions, the southern kingdom down around Ethiopia actually fought off the Muslims very easily. And then the Ethiopian kingdom became the only kingdom that did not succumb to later and hundreds of years later to colonialism. Like like they adopted Christianity early on. They were able to fight off the Muslims and then the colonial powers, which I think is evidence of the power of Christianity, not race. The reason Europe was transformed was because of Christianity, not race. You see similar things in African places when that happened.
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell would wreck this dude. Oh, yeah. Thomas Sowell's one of the most intelligent, probably in my view, the most intelligent political philosopher of our time. And he's black.
Never heard of him.
Oh, you should check him out. His book, Conflict of Visions, is very influential in how I study politics.
Okay.
That IQ test measures intelligence is widely accepted even by left-wingers, e.g. Flynn, Tuckheimer, Nisbet, etc. I don't agree with Mahler's theology, but he's right about IQ. Well, here's the pushback on that. Again, it's not measuring emotional intelligence. It's measuring pattern recognition, verbal ability, these kinds of things. And that's not necessarily intelligence. You could have someone who's very good in sales, who's good with talking to people, but may score low on IQ. IQ is not measuring every aspect of intelligence. It's measuring some intelligence. Can you steelman the case against traditional authorship? I get being uncertain, but some are so sure it could not be Matthew at all. Like, not sure who, definitely not those guys. I feel like there's a key point I'm missing. Okay. So she wants to steel man the case against the authors being Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Excuse me. Yeah. Here's I'll steel man it, and then Avery can debunk it. So the steel man would be, yeah, you heard me. The steel man would be basically, okay, look at it like this. Okay, so none of the gospels internally identify themselves as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're not identified, but all four are not identified by a single author until Irenaeus later on, around 180 to 200 AD. So those names, they would argue those names were made up later, like sometime in the early second or mid second century, and then Christians started to spread it around. That is the general argument they'll make. Not a very good argument. Most, as Simon Gathercole has pointed out, most ancient biographies, except for two, were written anonymously. They never identified themselves in the text. And if they were just making up names, why didn't they make up names for the book of Hebrews? Why also are we getting wide geographical distribution, like up in France, Ephesus, and Egypt? Everyone agrees it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Why choose Mark and not Peter? Why choose Luke and not more influential people like, let's say, Paul wrote a gospel, or even some of the direct disciples? But we see this type of pattern when it comes to the forgeries. They throw on the so-called more influential people on their works. So, yeah, I think that's a good point to realize as well.
That's also a good point, because if you actually look at what Justin Martyr says, he says, written in the memoirs of Peter, he changed the names of the sons of Zebedee to the sons of thunder. The only gospel that happens in is the Gospel of Mark. So if you were going to make up a name in the mid-second century based on what Justin Martyr's writing, you would make the Gospel of Mark be Peter. Why are you attributing it to an interpreter of Peter and not Peter himself?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it actually fits tradition pretty well.
Amazing. Mike, isn't it great when you can answer people's questions when they ask them?
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel great? Well,
yeah.
Those of you watching, you can have your questions answered not only on these live streams every Monday, but if you become a Patreon supporter, you can also get access to Michael Jones and have your questions answered more directly on the Inspiring Philosophy podcast that is available on Apple and Spotify. Also, if you want to help support Inspiring Philosophy, you can go to inspiringphilosophy.com/give. Your monthly donation will help support Inspiring Philosophy. Then Christopoulos, who is engaging in some cutting-edge research on undesigned coincidences and onomastic congruence with cutting-edge technology that we cannot wait to talk to you about. Your support helps fund this research. And not only that, it'll help increase the amount of content we're able to create and the reach that our content is able to produce. Yeah. So consider becoming an Inspiring Philosophy supporter today.
Yeah. And if anyone can donate, we'd really appreciate it. Donations have been down this month. The link is below. So I need to keep paying Than and Matt. So if you guys can donate, we really, really appreciate that. Mike says Cory was right about 85 being the IQ cutoff for intellectual disability in the early 1900s. It's 70 to 75 now. That's correct. 85 was is now considered borderline. That said, the race IQ studies are complete BS. Yeah, they are. There's no correlation has ever been shown in studies between race and IQ. This is just made up nonsense. Most of this is coming from socioeconomic factors. In fact, I can put up another thing here. So this is from the Brookings Institute. They're a left-leaning site, to be fair. I'm sure a lot of people will just dismiss them on that. But one of the things they note is that a lot of this stuff has been changing over time. So first, black-white differences in academic achievements have narrowed since the 1970s. Okay, if this was a race thing, we would not see this changing over time. What has changed since the 1970s? Okay, well, we've seen a lot less racism, a lot less segregation policies happen. So people in black communities are getting better chances to make better lives for themselves. And what happens? Intelligence goes up when you have that issue. So the idea that this is all just reduced to like race is absurd. You wouldn't see this change. This should be consistent over generations. The other thing people don't take to consider when they're thinking about this IQ stuff is historical factors. So like, if you actually look at the research here, going back to like the 1930s, there was a policy in the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration to give white people loans to buy land. And it was in the policy to deny black people the same privileges. Now, that's a problem because owning land is one of the strongest predictors of wealth generation. And wealth generation leads to better communities because you can tax your local people more to build better schools, therefore increasing intelligence. You got GI Bill, the same thing. The GI Bill targeted whites. It discriminated against blacks in the 1940s after World War II. So you actually had policies in place in the U.S. that gave more land to white people, creating barriers so black people couldn't get land. And then what do you expect is going to happen? It's going to create a trickle-down effect over the next couple decades and generations, leading to communities that are more historically black or Hispanic having less intelligence from less wealth generation, having worse schools. This kind of stuff just happens. And again, if you're a conservative and you're mad about this, why would you be? Because we're showing the government messed this up. The government's, I thought a lot of conservative people were skeptical of the government. Here's an example of, like with American Indian tribes, the government messing up things to keep them historically down. So government sucks at everything. It is responsible for a lot of the racial problems that are still slowly being filtered out and dealt with in today's age. Yeah. I had to look that up before this because I was like, I can't remember the policy, but I had to look all that stuff up. Yeah, that's just an historical fact. We can actually look in this country and see that black communities were targeted by the U.S. government and discriminated against, giving more wealth generation abilities to whites, allowed them to create better schools.
What do you think a motive is for a guy like Cory? Like, what do you think is because he's not making smart arguments, whether he truly believes what he's saying or not. What is his motive for taking this stance? People like him.
Oh, his motive is, I think, behind the study. He's insecure about how unintelligent he is, so he wants to pretend other people are less intelligent to him. And therefore, see, because he's such a racist and he's got low IQ, according to these studies, he's got No, okay. In all seriousness, it has more to do with, I think it does stem from the low intelligence. You see problems in society, it's common to blame someone. So you start blaming people so you don't feel like you're part of the problem, you're a victim. And so you start blaming other groups. This is what a lot of Marxists do. They're like, well, what's the problem in society? It's not perfect. Well, it's got to be religion. It's got to be the institutions of the past. We got to get rid of them because, we're not part of the problem. We're the solution. And someone who's a racist like Cory is going to use similar principles, similar tactics, and is going to say things like, well, obviously I'm not the problem. Obviously my people aren't the problem. I got to pin this on someone else instead of taking responsibility as being part of the human race.
Lack of accountability, projection,
those kind of things. So let's get to that. I want to get to that part where he brings up Augustine, because that's kind of an interesting point Cory tries to make. But he says something here that's pretty stupid before we get there because he doesn't know his history.
Straightforward for anyone who knows scripture. The Old Testament consistently and constantly describes the Jewish people racially as a stiff-necked people. That is
racially
a characteristic that makes sanctification more challenging because they are stubborn, they are obstinate, they persist in their sin, they are impenitent. Let's give another example in the New Testament.
Where does the Old Testament say they're stiff-necked because of their race?
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Insane.
Cretans are liars. Racial aspect, racial accusation against a particular people makes it more difficult to sanctify them. Much more difficult to deal with people who are innate liars than those who are not. I'll also address the point where my opponent decided to ask about my ancestors, my Germanic ancestors. Let's go ahead and talk about Tacitus. What did Tacitus note about the Germanic tribes? He said specifically that they held marriage in high esteem. Adultery was staunchly and strictly punished amongst them. That is actually in keeping with God's moral law. And scripture speaks about the pagans who have the law written on their hearts and keep the law despite not having the written law. That is a
gosh.
We praise for them. It doesn't mean it saved them, certainly. And I wonder why my opponent is so intent on denigrating his own people and praising the alien. That is something that is absolutely anathema to scripture and to all morality. Even pagans don't sink that low.
Wow.
Okay.
Can I say something quick before you rip him up? It's
Yeah.
hilarious that he considers pagans to only pagans are white, obviously, right? There's no such thing as a black pagan. Because like here he is praising the pagans for their ability to have the law written on their heart, but they're all white though. You know, that's that's the only way his argument makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did the Romans actually say about the Germanic people? They were not necessarily the best of people.
Mhm.
So Plutarch talks about how they committed abominable sacrifices they made to their gods, human sacrifices. Pliny the Elder says similar things as well. Julius Caesar wrote that human sacrifices were committed by the Druids. Sorry, like the idea that these were the greatest people ever is absurd. It's insanely stupid. It's insanely stupid. Europeans, prior to a Christian spread throughout the region, these were incredibly evil people. They engaged in abominable practices. A lot of them didn't even have written languages. They didn't have written languages until Christian missionaries came up from the Greco-Roman area, made things like the Gothic alphabet, made various alphabets for these peoples in the Germanic regions that didn't have alphabets. These were not these incredibly educated people until they became Christian. And I'm working on a video coming out later this year called How Christianity Educated the World. And you'd just be amazed at how stupid a lot of the Europeans were before they became Christian. They were backwater, stupid people that engaged in endless tribal warfare, were constantly bickering with one another and engaging in things like human sacrifice.
Wow.
Yep.
So, yeah, the idea that these were incredibly great people. Cory Mahler is quote mining, cherry picking things from Tacitus. He's ignoring a lot of other aspects that showed a lot of the Germanic tribes were insanely evil and stupid until, of course, they became Christian.
Yeah. I feel like he hyperfixates on certain elements that help boost his argument and just completely disregards, like you just said, the totality of information that we see throughout history, even like in present age. It's his arguments are just so goofy. Like he's making so many blunders here.
Is he aware of that, or is he just?
I don't think he's smart enough. He genuinely isn't smart enough to realize how bad his arguments are.
Well, I mean, we can't. It's because it's the studies show he just naturally has low IQ as a racist. He'll never be fully sanctified, and so we gotta remember that he can be saved, but he's not gonna be fully sanctified because he's a low IQ racist.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Poor thing. Poor thing.
Shove these issues under the rug simply because you don't like them or they make you uncomfortable. The reality remains. There are certain things that are inheritable, and they do make it more difficult to be sanctified. They make it more difficult to be a Christian because there are certain deficits there. For instance, you are never going to have an African at the same level of St. Augustine with regard to theology, because
you're never gonna have an African at the same level of theology as Augustine.
Wow.
Who happened to be
yeah, I can't believe he said that. So I posted this on X. And I was pointing out Augustine was actually of Berber descent, which is freaking.
Yeah.
And the racists, of course, because they're all over X now, were losing their minds. Like, well, Berbers are white people. Listen, guys, even if you're right that they're lighter skin, he's still African. Cory's just wrong. Cory is just wrong. St. Augustine comes from African descent, even if you try to argue that he is of lighter skin. And I looked it up. That's not true. Like, Berber people are very different in their skin color. You have very light skin Berbers. You have very dark skin Berbers. Like, I'll just show. I just go.
Nice.
You go to any tab. So look, some are darker, some are whiter. They're mixed. Okay. These are not Germanic looking people.
But the sociology, but they're white.
The sociology.
I was gonna say too. So Mike knows this already, but I was gonna ask you, Avery, what ethnicity do you think I am?
I think he was black.
No. I ain't black. I ain't black.
What
Do you know
is
Kev on stage? Do you know Kev on stage? You know who that is?
Yeah.
So I interviewed him once on my podcast, and I said, "Can I say the N-word?" He's like, "Are you black?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, you best not say that word."
That's crazy.
So
You ain't black.
I'm Hispanic. I'm Dominican and Puerto Rican. In
Mm.
my DNA, my
So black.
ethnicity, I am 60% European, and I'm 20% sub-Saharan African, and the rest is native Indian to the Dominican and Puerto Rican islands. So I mean, I guess you can consider me Afro-Hispanic,
Mhm.
but like when people say black, like what do you mean when you say
Mhm.
black? What do you
Mhm.
even mean? And so like that's what I mean. Like he hyperfixates on these certain topics and these certain areas of data, but it's like there's so many different variables to even consider when you're making the argument that he just sounds like an epic clown. He sounds like
Yeah.
a dang fool. And you know, it's like he makes these logical leaps while all the while, you know, posturing himself as though he's some type of legal authority. I'm just stating the facts here. It's like, no, you're a freaking idiot. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because there's
That's a
so
good
many
point.
different ways to interpret a lot of the arguments that he's using and like who even black people are. But like technically, yeah, I'm not black. Even though I have some sub-Saharan African,
That's a good
majority
point.
of my DNA and ethnicity is European.
Yeah.
I'm pasty.
You're as close as they come, Mike.
Yeah.
You're as close as they come.
No, that's a great point. And like I mean, like I'm just thinking of all like the amazing black thinkers we've had over the years. Like Frederick Douglass was probably one of the most beautiful writers of the 19th century, a former slave. George Washington Carver, inventor, agricultural engineer of his time. You have, as we mentioned, Thomas Sowell, probably one of the most, if not the most brilliant political thinker of the past 50 years. Like, by far, his work is phenomenal on it. Who were all the conservative Catholics calling for to be the next pope? It was Cardinal Sarah, who is also black. Like, very conservative, very excellent theologian. Like, this idea that, like, you can't have black people have this kind of level of intelligence and sophistication, insanely stupid. And notice, Mahler didn't make an argument from average here. He said, no one will ever have the theology of Augustine, who's of African descent. It's like, yes, you do. We do have very intelligent thinkers in various fields. I mean, like, you just haven't done any research on this.
Yeah.
He said he would condemn James White. He was like, we're not arguing from exceptions here. We're arguing from averages. It's like,
yeah,
what even do you mean by that? Like, you just if you're considering certain people to be, say, above average or exceptions, that still defeats your argument, because it's like if they're the average, like, I don't know. To me that's dumb. Like, what do you think, Mike?
It doesn't defeat the argument, because he blatantly says we're not talking about the what do you call it? The like the small little examples. You know, it's that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the majority. We're talking about the rule, not the exception. Okay.
Sorry.
So when he's bringing up somebody like Thomas, like he brought up earlier, that means nothing. It does nothing. He's doing exactly what he was prepared that he would do. Fell right in the trap, Mike.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, here's where James White cooks him and ends the debate. This is the defining moment where James White wins the debate.
You just made reference to Titus chapter 1, verse 12. Could you read Titus chapter 1, verse 13?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can read it for you if you'd like.
This testimony is true. You want me to read the full verse, or?
Yes.
This testimony is true, therefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith.
So, according to the Apostle Paul, would it be possible for Cretans to be sanctified so as to be sound in the faith?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
All right, debate over. Debate over. James White wins. Like, over, because Cory Mahler's point, he brought up Titus 1:12 earlier and said, like, these are limitations. These are actual limitations on, for example, the Cretans, and they're always going to be liars. And then he admits, nope, they can be fully sanctified right there, according to Paul, because of verse 13. Therefore, his own argument falls entirely apart. Just because people commit crime, that doesn't mean they can not be fully sanctified. Just because certain people have low IQ, that doesn't mean they can't be fully sanctified. But Cory's too low IQ to understand he just lost the entire debate by admitting James White was right there.
So he brought up, Cory is the one who brought up Titus 1 verse 12. Hey, that's incredible.
Yeah.
He brought up 1:12 to bolster his point. And then verse 13 is just, that's tough, man.
Over.
That's tough.
Debate over at that point.
Yeah, it's over. What is he doing? That's tough. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you see any of Cory's cross-examination?
No.
Oh, Lord.
about
I
to
was
show
hoping
it?
you were going to get to this.
Oh, I am so glad you didn't watch it.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is so hilarious.
This is wow.
Okay. Brace, if you've not watched this, this is
I've watched
Cory cross-examining James White. And James White, you got to watch his facial expressions because he is blown away by how dumb this is.
Children, not infants, but young children who come forward, profession of faith, desiring to be baptized. We specifically ask them who they're believing in, what they understand about him before we give baptism to them.
Would you say that it's fair that you conceptualize faith, saving faith, as a conscious trust in Christ and his completed work?
Yes.
Are men conscious when they are asleep?
Not in the normal use of that term.
Are men conscious when they are in a coma?
Same answer.
Do you hold to or agree with the 1689 London Baptist Confession of Faith?
Yes.
Can the leopard change his spots?
No.
Can the Ethiopian change his skin?
Oh my gosh.
Not according to Jeremiah.
Do you know the etymology of the word Ethiopian?
A lot of argumentation about that. In fact, Cushite, Ethiopian, immense amount of disagreement and argumentation over that particular concept. A lot of people have come to the conclusion that Ethiopian simply meant people at the farthest reaches of the known world at that time. It's used poetically, so it's really hard to say.
Are you aware of the etymology that is given for the Greek in Little Scott? LSJ?
For what?
For Ethiopian.
I could look it up for you if you'd like me to.
Does God call the Israelites a stiff-necked people?
Yes, he certainly does. And then uses
Does he do it
them
once
to write
or
a
more
great
than
deal
once?
of the Old Testament.
Does he do it once or more than once?
Many times.
Was Paul wrong to express the desire to be cut off from salvation if thereby he could save members of his own race, in his words, his brothers according to the flesh?
Of course not.
When a man converts to Christianity, does he typically become biologically immortal? Which is to say, in time, not in eternity.
No.
When a man converts to Christianity, does he typically regrow lost limbs?
Wow, I really hope we get back to the subject someday, but no.
When a man converts to Christianity, does he typically gain the ability to fly?
Can we get to something about the subject, please?
Please answer the question.
It's an absurd question.
Then it should be easy to answer.
Right, but I'm done with the absurd questions. Get to the questions that are relevant.
This is cross-examination. This is cross-examination.
No,
I get to ask
and
the
it's in a
questions.
debate. So you're supposed to be asking
Correct.
about what I've said in the debate. I said
Well-
nothing about flying. This is a waste of everybody's time. It's a waste of the audience's time too. Please try to
I
respect
believe the audience, at least some of the audience, I believe some of the audience knows
I
exactly.
do agree.
I believe
Let's
that-
keep the questions on topic.
I believe
please.
he's answered it sufficiently. I was going to move on
Yeah.
anyway.
Flying is not
Can
part of the
Christ-
debate.
Can Christ abandon or relinquish his humanity?
abandon or relinquish his humanity.
Yes.
No, he's the God man. That's how we even have union with Christ. Is we are in Him, in as the second Adam. What does this have to do with the thing?
Can God cease to exist?
No,
Can God commit moral evil?
no,
Can God, according to his divine nature, die?
no.
Oh my gosh.
I assure you the questions are on topic because we are asking fundamentally about what God can and cannot do.
You can tell
And
he's
I'm asking
reading
questions
too.
about what-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they just went. This is the whole cross examination.
Yeah.
He
Awesome.
never makes a point. He just keeps asking questions. Is a platypus venomous? Can it lose
Yes.
its venom? Like, it's like
My favorite part.
like where is that part? Where does he bring up? the venom.
The platypus
I'm not gonna
venomous.
lie to you. I'm entertained. I would like to keep this going. I want to see what else he got.
Yeah, it gets
Can God
worse.
cease to be God?
No.
Can God lie?
No.
Can men get pregnant? Perhaps tying into your earlier comments about Africans and men and women.
No.
Can God make a man pregnant?
So please keep the questions on
I
topic.
assure you that I am asking questions
No,
about
you're
the
not,
topic
and everybody
itself.
knows it.
It's not.
You're not, and everybody knows
The
it.
question, the question fundamentally is, can God not? Is that a coherent thing
Okay,
to say?
so make your point. Ask questions relevant to the topic, please.
This is cross-exam. This is the function of. I am well aware.
Cross-examination is about what I have said. Deal with what I've said. You're not doing that, and everybody sees it and knows it.
I am dealing with what you've said
No, you're
because
not.
your contention is that God can do this thing. My contention is that God cannot do this thing, and so it is important to establish there are in fact things God cannot do, and you and I both recognize that. You've already admitted that quite a number of times, but I think it's important to drive home the point, which is the entire point of cross-exam.
No, it's not.
I think everyone knows the answer to the question, so I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, please do.
Is it true that platypodes are venomous?
Platypus.
No idea.
I thought that was a
I'm going
joke. I thought that was a joke. He really asked that?
Yes. Platypus. He used the plural.
This is where Cory thinks he gets him, though. He really thinks he outsmarts James here.
Important to take notice of that one. It's a well-known fact.
Let me back up a little bit.
Platypus are venomous.
I have no idea.
I'm willing for the court to take notice of that one. It's a well-known fact. Platypus is in fact venomous.
Take
I
notes.
think
the thing
I
is-
am-
It's not even the right plural. The plural of platypus is platypuses, and that's it. Platypuses, not platypodes. Maybe he's using the Greek. Oh, yeah, he's using the Greek platypodes.
Okay.
What a goofball.
Oh, okay.
Look
And
at
I just
James'
like-
face. Look at his face.
In the Greek, platypodes.
Oh my
I just-
god! Look
I
at his
just like-
face.
I just like how Cory's like, I would like for the court to take notice. You don't know this basic fact about platypodes in
Oh
a
my
debate that has
God.
nothing to do
Yeah.
with them.
Mm,
I'd like them to
mm,
take
mm.
notice of that, guys.
I would have
Wow.
felt better even if platypi, you can use platypi. He went straight to in the Greek.
Yeah, and, technically S is not the way. Whatever, Okay.
Yeah.
going to relinquish the remaining 3 minutes after this one next question. One more lighthearted one. What is your favorite road bike?
Oh goodness. After that, I'm hesitant to do this, but I have an S-Works Tarmac, and it's more bike than I can
Very nice.
actually use. So
All
there
right,
you go.
Cory, really.
He did that again. Like that's just what he did in the second cross examination too.
Oh, there's two.
There's two. Yeah.
Yeah.
He kept going here. I'll find it in a minute, but let me get to some of the super chats before we do that because
That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, Cory. That's how you get them. That's how you do it. Court, take note.
very relevant now. Bro is on something. Get him drug tested.
Wow.
I think Mahler is on those Billy Carson shrooms because he's tripping big time. Like what? He doesn't understand what cross-examination for. He just asked him a series of questions of things that God cannot do or people cannot do. It's like it had nothing to do with the debate. Like you could have spend a little more time asking other things, but
Oh man.
every time he opened his mouth, a piece of my spirit ascended to glory. Hi, Mike. Use your time wisely when it comes to debating. I met you at Ash Grove Baptist recently. Yeah, it was nice to meet you, sir. I was just we're just in Australia, and I met a lot of great people down there. Even though I was incredibly exhausted the whole time because I never adjusted to the time zone sleep issue.
Yeah.
The day I came back though, it's like my body never left. I just slept normal and my time.
Nice.
It's
Wow.
insane how like I just could not adjust to the time zone. Place your bets, gentlemen. Does white supremacist opponent have a black girlfriend that he's hiding?
Oh. You know what's funny about that? Dr. Umar, who's known for like saying no snow bunnies, no snow bunny. He has a white girlfriend.
That's
He was
insane.
caught on video talking to a white woman. So yeah, that's hilarious. The irony there.
Let's see here. Thank the Lord, my church LCMS excommunicated this imbecile. Yes,
Nice.
Aaron. Yes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. We
Wow.
all that was a good decision. Yeah, He tried to come back and they threw him out. I think at one point a church called the police on him because he wasn't even welcome there.
Wow.
That's how serious they took it. And good thing. Hi IP, what do you think about full preterism, the view that all prophecy has been filled and there is no one left to be filled? Do you think people who genuinely believe this aren't saved even if they really love Jesus? I don't think they're not saved. I think it's out of orthodoxy, but I reject it. I don't think full preterism is real for a very simple case. Jesus hasn't returned and is not physically reigning on earth. We've not gone through the resurrection yet. We don't have bodies like Jesus. Therefore, full preterism is not true.
Yeah.
So Bible dingers who post a debate brought up don't forget what Mahler said. We never have someone like St. Augustine come from Africa. Augustine was from Africa.
Yeah.
Since Paul was present as Saul when Stephen was stoned, is it possible he saw Christ before or after the crucifixion, pre-Damascus? One of my kids was asking while reading Acts. What are your thoughts on that?
Since Paul was present as Saul when Stephen was stoned, is it possible he saw Christ before or after the crucifixion, pre-Damascus? One of my kids. So is she asking, is it possible that Paul saw Christ before the crucifixion?
I think so.
I think it's definitely possible. I think it's possible that Paul definitely saw him or was familiar with him, you know? Yeah, I think for sure.
Yeah, I think it's possible. So yeah, let's say seems pretty it's likely, but there's no direct evidence of it. That's the problem. He could have heard of him. He could have been studying. He may have, but he never says it. No one ever says it. So there's also the case that no, he never did. No. So I mean, it doesn't really matter. It'd be cool if he did and make a good movie. I don't know. But I mean, if he did, I'd say he had very little interaction, or he just sort of saw Jesus preaching at the temple in a distance kind of thing, that kind of stuff. But we wouldn't know.
Probably was hating in the background.
Oh my God.
Back with, did I already do this one? No, this is a different one. Also, would you consider debating a full preterist? No, I'm not interested. Again, I have too many important things to do. I'm trying to learn more about Islam right now, so I can start. I have a debate coming up on that. I'll be debating when I go to London on Unbelievable soon. I want to debate people that are not Christians. I don't like to get into this kind of stuff. So now I have more because I have more important things to do. Not because I don't think it'd be easy to address. I have more important things to do. If one is convinced Matthew 16:18, Peter is the rock, does that necessarily lead to Catholicism, or can Protestants also believe Peter is the rock?
What does this got to do with what we're talking about today, guys?
They throw every question they can to test me.
Maybe you'll correct me here, Mike, but I'm pretty sure that we can understand Peter as the rock even on Protestantism because he was part of the foundation of the church. But that doesn't necessarily entail a type of succession from him. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the early church is going to be a little. I'll admit I'm not really an expert on this, but a lot of early church fathers interpreted giving the keys to the apostles plural, and you could take like an Anglican or a Lutheran or a Presbyterian like high church stance and be like, yeah, it's still the church that's continuing on. We're just reforming what was originally there. So like they'll say the Catholic Church has kind of got a little off. We are still the continuation of the church. And therefore, we're still part of that rock that was established under Peter, just not in the specific Roman line. And also Lutherans do have something that kind of gives them an edge here, is because when the Reformation happened, the Catholic Church forgot to excommunicate the Swedes who became Lutheran. So Petrus Magni set up another bishop, and that guy was never excommunicated. So the Lutherans still have an unexcommunicated line going through the Swedish church. And a lot of American Lutheran churches, they come from like a Finnish synod. It was under the Swedish church, and they have actually set up a lot of churches here through the LCMS and others. So yeah, it's got them on a technicality. They forgot to get excommunicated. So. How does Cory reconcile the fact that Jesus was a Jew, a black man? I'm I'm asking because I'm too stupid to know better. Cory 316.
Yeah, according to Cory's assessment, Jesus by race was a stiff-necked person. According to his race, he was stiff-necked. How could he have escaped that and been sanctified and yada yada yada? That's interesting.
We see, we're not referring to exceptions here, Avery. So
There no outliers. Jesus is the outlier. We're talking about the whole. Nice.
Yeah. No outliers except when we bring up Augustine. Then we can.
Who was not an African.
Right.
1/3 of Nobel Prizes in science are awarded to Ashkenazi Jews. I, like 90% of intelligent researchers, believe there is a genetic component. Am I racist?
Yes.
I would like to know.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike. I was just gonna say, like, I just don't feel like correlation would equal causation here. Like, this is a very particular award, and you can receive awards based on like who you know or what you've been, how you enter them and things like that. I just don't see there necessarily being a correlation here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, what is intelligence? Okay,
Right.
Are we going on IQ tests? Again, this is just measure. That's not a good understanding of general intelligence. Ava and I could be really good debating Muslims, but we're not going to be very good fixing cars, doing plumbing, electrician stuff. I don't know if you've got any of those skills. You may have them, but I mean, like, intelligence in what area, in what skill, that kind of thing. I mean, like, also, again, a lot of intelligence comes from communities that are able to generate wealth better. Historically, a lot of minority communities were targeted by the U.S. government to prevent them from owning land and generating wealth. That led to less taxes in your local community being given to schools that you could then educate people better and then, of course, raise intelligence levels. So, no, I think it's far more a cultural thing. I don't think there's been any evidence showing that certain races are just less intelligent because, again, you have to define what intelligence is. You have to defend the IQ test as being the end-all, be-all or something else. And you need to actually show there's a genetic component. I think that's very hard to do. I think people are going to have different strengths depending on, their culture, their background, these kinds of things. And I don't think intelligence is going to be easily measurable or identifiable, given the vast web of networks it can manifest in.
Yeah, and I also think this person saying that they're an intelligence researcher, I think it's also a stretch to make those connections between genetics and intelligence in the type of research that you're doing. Like, I think you might be operating out of your field to make that equivocation there, in my opinion, because it's like Michael said, there's different types of intelligence, which you should be aware of, but how that ties into biology and genetics, I think is an entirely different argument, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm also speaking out of my field.
Well, he said this is 1 of 3, and I don't see 2 of 3. I'm looking through the chat right now.
No, he's saying 1/3 of Nobel Prizes.
Oh, my mistake.
Are awarded.
Well, that's because I'm low IQ.
Mike's racist confirmed.
Should have had AP on to speak German.
Oh man.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah, I'd like to see more apologists for rebukes of the racist GoFundMes. Yeah. Lily Gadless, white Christian nationalist, every channel that's silent is complicit. Well, I wouldn't say every channel that's silent is complicit. I think sometimes we get busy and are important doing other things, and we all have our areas we got to tackle. But I mean,
I've never heard of any of this that they're mentioning, so I guess
Avery's too busy cooking Muslims,
Yeah.
Chef Avery.
If I'm right, then racial terms like black and white aren't even biologically really distinct. So much race essentialism on both sides that causes hate and like anti-white and white supremacists. Yeah, there's more like genetic diversity between the various chimpanzees in Africa than there is between humans living in on opposite sides of the globe. Like, we're actually a very unique species in that we're very, very, very similar. But if you go to like other species that are still able to interbreed, they have a much more diverse background. So humans are very, very close on their genetic makeup compared to like chimpanzees or bonobos, for example. What happened to the slurp bra? Bring him on. What? The
Sus IP
Oh, sus.
IP.
That looked like an L. I don't know. He's not here. Maybe he should show up. I don't know where he is. Okay, serious one this time. Are you going to make a video defending the virgin birth? If not, what scholars do you know that if not, what scholars do you know do besides the goated NT Wright? I think hasn't testified on stuff on the virgin birth. I think he's made videos on that. I don't know, but yeah. All right, I'm going to put up this debate again so that we can play his second cross-examination because it is just as hilarious.
All right.
Let's return for a moment to the conceptualization of saving faith as a conscious trust. When you conceive of saving faith as a conscious trust, does that not require that man have a certain capacity to develop such a thing as a conscious thought?
The gospel is the message of what God has done in Jesus Christ, and he communicates it to people on every level, to the incredibly intelligent person with the 160 IQ, and I've seen him communicate it to the person with Down syndrome. How that works functionally in the brain, I can't even begin to understand, but I've seen it happen, and I trust the word of God at that point.
I'm glad that we actually agree on that one, because I've also known some severely mentally handicapped individuals who were nevertheless very staunch Christians. So that's certainly a great gift of God. Was God wrong to tell Abram that he would make of him a great nation?
Here we go again. No.
What is the word used for nation in the Greek there?
I could look it up for you. Probably ethnos, but I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Do you happen to know the Latin root of the word nation?
Are we talking about ethnos or
in this,
I'm not sure
in this case, nation? The word nation. Do you know the Latin root of the word nation? Obviously not ethnos, which is Greek.
Right. No.
Back to the notes.
Do you think that it was wrong, returning to my earlier question about Paul wanting to be cut off for the sake of his own brothers according to the flesh, do you think it was wrong for him to care more for his own race than for those of another race? Because he didn't say he wanted to be cut off for the Greeks. He said he wanted to be cut off for his fellow Jews, those who were his brothers according
Greeks are the ones
blood,
believing,
according to
dummy.
flesh.
Well,
Was that wrong?
Except that he also, likewise, at the same time, is the apostle to the Gentiles, not the apostle to the Jews. So he was very balanced. But his point was that he wanted those who possessed the word of God to believe the promises of God. And even though they had been persecuting him, he wanted them to hear and understand and come to know their own Messiah.
But was it wrong for him to care more for his own race?
I don't think he cared more because he gave his life to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. So
Did he not give his life to bring gospel to the Gentiles because God specifically commanded him? That was not his choice, certainly, to be blinded on the Damascus road, correct?
I'm certain that the Spirit of God gave him the love that he needed for that task as well.
Was it his choice or God's choice that he be the apostle to the Gentiles?
That was God's choice.
Was Paul wrong when he boasted in his lineage with regard to being a Jew according to whom God had given the oracles of God, from whom the prophets had come, and from whom the Christ descended?
No, there, as he says in Romans, there were great benefits to the people of God. All the things were given to them. And of course, Romans 9:5, through them came Christ, who is God over all, blessed forever.
Was God wrong for classifying the Canaanites according to their race and singling them out for destruction as a group, which is to say genocide?
Well, as we read in Genesis, the transgression of the Amorites was not yet full. So there was obviously a period of time where the curse of Canaan, not Ham, but Canaan, was being developed, shall we say, before God brought his judgment upon those nations. But God would be just to bring his judgment upon every single nation on the planet.
And another important point is they were not attacked because of their race. It was
Right.
their sin. Why was Rahab and her family saved? Nothing to do with race. It had to do with allegiance, sin, or the Gibeonites. Or, I mean, and again, this is also, we've addressed this in numerous times. The main command of God is to drive them out of the land, not exterminate them. And Paul Copan notes this in his book, Did God Command Genocide? Most of the language about annihilating them is used in hyperbolic contexts around the context of the actual command, which was to drive them out, not exterminate. So again, if Cory has not studied this a lot, you would expect this kind of stuff.
He hasn't studied
We
anything.
could go into
No, you're right. Yeah.
the
I was
Canaanite
gonna say,
religion and demonstrate that it was
it also-
really.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, go
Mike.
ahead.
It was also he's telling on himself so much here, because it's like he's reading into the text racial undertones that belong nowhere in the context. He's
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, this is obvious about race," or when Paul says according to the flesh, he obviously means the race of the Jews. I mean, what do you think that he's correct as far as that reading is concerned?
Who, Cory?
Yeah, Cory, as when the way he's reading Paul say he wants to lay his life down for his brothers according to the flesh.
Yeah, I think there he's talking about those that are physically Jews. He wants them all to be saved. But I mean, it's not because of racial superiority. It's because he loves his own people, like most people do. Like, I don't understand. Like, none of this shows racial superiority just because you care about people close to you.
Really just, but we don't need to do that right now.
Was that a yes? It was just for God to order genocide with regard to the Canaanite race.
Yes.
Was it wrong for God to include women and children in that destruction, the devotion to destruction,
Poor
including
James.
those who, according to your understanding, I believe, would be under the age of reason?
Wow.
I don't use that argumentation, but if God had used an earthquake to do it, then God would have been just. In this situation, he used his people to do it, and I think there were other purposes involved in that as well. But God is just when he brings his judgment to bear for any sin at any point.
Is all truth contained in Scripture?
Of course not.
Is there truth in creation that can be discerned by reason and the other attributes, abilities of man given us by God?
Oh, great.
If you're talking about natural revelation and natural law, there's a lot of discussion about that. There's major distinctions there. Ultimately, Scripture is the only lens through which we are to look at creation itself. And so while there is truth revealed in creation, it is always truth that must be first and foremost interpreted within the lens of Scripture. Most of the time, unfortunately, that proper arrangement gets reversed.
What about the sort of truth that we usually call scientific?
He just goes on for hours. Like, this is like this. Cory's not even like making a point. Like with James' cross-examination, he got him on like Titus 1:12. Like he used that. Cory's just like, what about this? And what about that? No, what about this? No, what about what is like? It's just like, I'm surprised James didn't fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Watching that myself just now, I zoned out. I don't know how James did it. Shout out to James and his professionalism. I would not have been able to. I would have had to do things to keep myself engaged. You know, I would have had to stir some type of pot somehow. I don't know, bro. That's a tough watch, and I can't believe you tried to force me to watch this. I can't believe it.
You're welcome. This is all part of my master plan.
Right.
All right, let's finish super chats and then we'll close this out. Okay, serious one this time. Are you going to make a video? Oh, I already did that one. Who's more intelligent, a master electrician or a really good debater? I just want to know. I myself would like to be considered intelligent. I see what you're doing there, Yusuf. I see what you're doing. Nice try. But I can recognize that stuff. I've been getting into apologetics over the past year, thanks to you all. Do you all have any recommendations on books to read about church history?
There's a book called Church History. It's really good.
Who wrote it?
Forgot the guy's name, but it's like really good.
Guys, don't forget to go to inspiringphilosophy.com/reading recommendations.
Here's a good book by J.N.D. Kelly, Early Christian Doctrines. That's a good book for sure. So maybe start with this one because it's a pretty long book. It'd take you some time. So do that. And I always encourage people to read the church fathers. You just read them. Like, that's always a good place to go to.
Where do you start with reading them?
Where do you start? Start with this book here.
Early Christian doctrines.
by J&D Kelly.
Do they
start-
do they go into like heresies they debunked too?
Yeah, he covers a lot of different aspects in this book. It's been a while since I've read it, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. He talks about Judaism, different principles, how they look at the scriptures. I mean, it's a long book. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in it though, so you'll get a ton of stuff in here. Yeah, he goes talks about the teachings of Arius and other heresies as well. But yeah,
cool.
Racial division is a distraction. White, black, Asian need to be united to spread the kingdom of God. None of us would be Christian if 12 Jews didn't leave their country, preach to the world. Well said. Well said.
You know what I've been wanting? I've been wanting some good reading material on like the Nazarenes and the Ebionites and stuff like that. I've been wanting some good sources on that because I'm so sick of people trying to say, "Oh yeah, they reject," just claims that they try to use them and say these are the real secret Christians. I've never really read up deeply on them myself.
I have read, but see here, the reason I know a lot about like the Ebionites is more to do with me just reading the church fathers. So here's a short video I did on that.
Watch this.
All right, if you insist.
These people who followed the teachings of Jesus, that none of them contradicts what the Quran says.
Ebionites.
Who are they?
They're
Did they believe Jesus was crucified?
No.
So that is demonstrably false from the text we have regarding the Ebionites. Eusebius tells us they celebrated the resurrection on Sunday, and Irenaeus implies that they believe Jesus died and rose again. There are simply no texts that say the Ebionites denied the crucifixion. The Ebionites also contradicted the teachings of Islam in other ways. They did not believe Jesus was the Christ. They believed the Christ was a heavenly figure who descended upon Jesus at his baptism, but departed from him at his crucifixion. Hippolytus of Rome also tells us the Ebionites believed they themselves could become Christ if they kept the requirements of the Jewish law. And many of the Ebionites appear to have denied the virgin birth, believing that Joseph was his biological father. Simply put, the Ebionites were not early Muslims.
Watch this.
I just love IP's videos. Such a big fan. Oh my gosh.
Boom, the dunk.
So yeah, if you want to look up stuff on the Ebionites, just check that video and then read the church fathers and what they say about them. Because I put all the sources in there. Easy to find. If you use like newadvent.com, you'll find a lot of the sources on them. And yeah, the Ebionites are not early Muslims. If anything, they're more like New Agers. Like they believe they can become a Christ and all this kind of stuff. Like they did not deny the crucifixion.
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick? Guys, make sure you're liking and subscribing to the Inspiring Philosophy YouTube. And if you want to get some more reading material, I misquoted the actual URL. It's inspiringphilosophy.com/recommended-reading. So if you want to get some of that recommended reading that Mike has recommended himself, go to inspiringphilosophy.com and then scroll down to recommended reading, or you could use that URL I just mentioned.
Yeah, and you can also just go through the videos we like. If you want to read up on a specific topic, watch one of the videos we have. I guarantee I'll cite books in there. Just go read those books. That's what I tell people, because I don't cover everything. Like when I do the video coming out on how Christianity ended slavery, I'm going to cite books like Without Consent or Contract by Robert Fogel, Ben Wright's book, Bonds of Salvation. I'm not going to be able to cover everything in a 37-minute video. So check the books out coming out on that video, that kind of stuff. Here's my Chipotle money for your ministry. Do you have any good resources on the virgin birth from an historical point of view? This guy doesn't know that Christ is Lord of all nations, not Europe. Stuff on the virgin birth, like from an historical point of view. Trying to think. I know Testify has some videos on the virgin birth. So go to the channel Testify, see what he recommends on that. I've never really defended it historically because it's one of those things. It's not like the resurrection where you can argue for it from the actual evidence. It's one of those things that becomes a fact if Jesus rose from the dead, and therefore we can trust his testimony about his own birth that, is handed down to the apostles. So I don't know if there's any books that would do. Maybe Lydia McGrew might have one. I know she's big on that, but I'm not really sure if that's the route that we should be taking anyway. I think our case should be built on the resurrection, the reliability of the Gospels. And then it would follow that the other miracles are likely true, given those ones. My understanding is that the Perizzites did not exist as a separate ethnic group. So for critics of Judaism to bring it up is moot. Yeah, we're not entirely sure about the parasites, as in the groups in Canaan. They're one of those obscure groups. We're not entirely sure who or what they were. It's just they're mostly mentioned in the Bible. Some people try to connect them to other groups mentioned outside of the Bible, but it's hard because they're not going to use the exact same term. So yeah, it's hard to really say. Here's my money. Keep up the good work. Is the Discord server coming out soon? Matt, is the Discord server done?
I will speak on that. So we do have a plan for the Discord server. It is ready to go. So I appreciate everybody asking for that. It's going to be available to donors first. There's going to be a donor newsletter that's going to go out to everybody who's done a donation through our website, through our donor portal. And they're going to get a link to that before everyone else. They're going to have special Discord powers. But we're still figuring that out. But once that's made available to them, first to the donors and then to the Gentiles. This is how that's going to work.
If you guys want to donate, the link is below. If you donate through the website, we get 100% of the donation. We could really use your support this month as donations have been low. So please help us out by going down, becoming a monthly donor, or giving a one-time gift. We really, really appreciate it. Anything else, guys, or you want to go to bed?
I'm ready to get something to eat.
Sounds like a good idea.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Good to meet you, Avery.
You too, man. It was a pleasure. This was a fun one.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing us on this one.
I mean, when are racists not hilariously bad at what they do? I mean,
exactly. If you're not hilariously bad at what you do as a racist, you're bad at what you do.
Yeah.
Allow me to counter that question by asking you, are the platypodes venomous?
It's like, yeah, that was the most lowest IQ cross-examination I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, yes.
Horrible.
So thoughts on the filioque? Avery, do you hold to the filioque? Does the spirit proceed from the Son and the Father, or just the Father?
I think that in a world where there is IQ which is high and low, I don't know if I am in the place or in the skin where I have the right to.
Oh my
God. I'm very neutral on that. I tend to lean more towards the Eastern, so I kind of just say the spirit proceeds from the Father. But I mean, it's not. It's not. There's good arguments on both sides. What I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, God Logic is so cringe.
Oh, thanks.
So. All right, yeah. We gotta. I want to debate Muslims again on your channel, so we gotta set that up sometime.
Come through. Come on, hey, just let me look. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, baby. You let me know whichever one of those days you free.
I could probably do a Wednesday after I get back from London, so we'll plan for that.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's cook, man.
Awesome. All right, guys. I'm going to be live on my channel Monday with David Wood. We're going to go through TikTokers trying to respond to the Islamic dilemma and watching them utterly fail.
That is not fair. You brought me on this one?
Well, you can come on that one. You want to come on Monday? You're usually busy.
Crazy.
You're busy Mondays.
In afternoons. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll send you the link. You can jump in if you want.
Okay.
All right. I have a video coming out tomorrow debunking another alleged Bible contradiction, and I'll be posting a video next Friday on the Islamic dilemma, showing how Muslim responses are actually proving our point. So keep that up. Remember to follow God Logic. His channel is linked below, and I'll see you guys Monday with David Wood and Avery as we go through the Islamic dilemma Muslims are putting out.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.